All right, so here we are before free agency starts later today. And I kind of want to just do a quick summation of my expectations or what I would like to see, and just kind of a quick recap on some things that have happened with the Bulls that are pretty relevant. I'm not going to get into the undrafted free agents that have signed with the Bulls because that's a lot more relevant to me. I will say this, we drafted, I think the guy's name is Dalen Terry. I'm not happy with the draft. Um, there were better options to be chosen, in my opinion. Not to say that I think he's a bad player or won't contribute, but EJ Liddell was still on the board. Why you don't go pick him, I don't know. But I mean, they're high on the guy. Apparently, several other teams were, so they know something I don't know. So I'll just leave it at that. Hopefully he works out for the team. I see him playing backup, uh, like a combo forward goal, like role. I think is kind of what I see him as. Like he'll fit in as a guard. Sometimes he'll be the three. It just kind of depends on situations, injuries, and that kind of deal. Um, he's kind of like a Lonzo esque kind of player without the jump shot right now. So we'll see what he does, how BD plans to use him, um, and the plans for this team, especially during Summer League. We'll get to see a little bit of him in action for those of us who have not seen him play. So I'm going to put that to the side. Look, there's a couple things that need to be stated. The markets for Rudy Gobert and DeAndre Ayton have dried up, and those are probably the two premier centers that you can get this offseason on the open market. Um, it's way too expensive to go get either of those guys. Like you're gonna have to give up Patrick Williams in any trade for either of those dudes right now, and I doubt that Acme wants to move off of DeMar and Vooch because they want that quote unquote continuity. So I don't see that happening. Also, it looks like Zach will be re-signing his contract with the Bulls, so he should be back. All reports indicate he's signing day one. Okay. Now, as this pertains to like Aiton, Brian Windhorst yesterday was saying that they basically feel like they could get the same production they get from Aiton from other bigs without the value, without the cost. Okay. Apparently, they were happy with Bismarck Biombo and JaVale when Aiton wasn't there, so they're willing to let him go. Now, I saw the Nets had a package of like Claxton and like two other like role players, and I'm just like, there's no way that that's gonna fly. It's gonna have to be a three-team trade. As this pertains to the Bulls, um, I wouldn't pay him a max because nobody else is going to pay him a max, and they're trying to get rid of him. If you're going to try to get a sign and trade, I would figure out a number that fits with um, what you're looking for and pay that. Nikola Vucevic is getting paid 22 million this year, so maybe that's something you should start off with, like a 5 year or 4 year, 22 million a year kind of deal, and go from there. That would probably be more worth it. But yeah, that's just simply not something I would invest in, and I would like to think that the Bulls feel the same way, and they're not looking to take on eight. Rudy Gobert, um, well, Atlanta was the one team that had the assets to like trade for him, like a very good trade package, but they just took Dejounte Murray for Danilo Gallinari at three first. And one of the first they gave up ain't even there. It's the Charlotte's. and and it's a pick swap in it. And I think this is all to try to get that guy, that 7 footer. I don't know his name. It starts with a W. It's like Winbenian or something. I don't know his name. But I've been hearing all about this dude like this offseason about how generational he is. So that's probably what this is. Go ahead, start the tank, trade up all favorable assets, and just suck ass for the year in an attempt to get this dude. So they're probably just trying to compile a bunch of picks, and hopefully, even if they don't get the number one, maybe they can make an offer like the Godfather Arthur's offer and say, "Look, I'm gonna give you all this stuff. I need that number one pick." So we'll see what happens with that. But because that's a little off here, but ATL was one of the few teams that had an opportunity to get Rudy. So were the Bulls. I always wanted them to give up Vooch, um, DeMar, Io, and a first to get Rudy and like filler. But I don't think that's gonna happen. And the more and more I look at it, I'm starting to think that Rudy Gobert will be back in Utah next season, which means he's probably off the table because the cost is just too high. They want Pat Will. We don't want to give up Pat Will. Um, it is what it is. Okay. Now, there's a lot of heat behind Hartenstein because they just took on John Wall, the Clippers did, which means they're going to have to let him walk because they're not going to have the suitable amount of money unless he decides to take a pay cut. So that's one of our targets. I like the Hartenstein move. Um, the one that I'm really wanting, like if you're telling me like guys we should shoot for right out the gate, I want Mo Bamba. Mo Bamba, if I'm not mistaken, was in the Zoe class. And he's a guy who could give you 18 and 12 if you played him maximum minutes. Now, obviously, he's going to come off the bench on this team, which is fine. But he does a lot of things. Obviously, he can score, he can shoot, he can get rebounds. He's pretty solid defensively. He's not some, by any stretch of the imagination, great rim protector. He's not this great defender, but he's a whole lot better than Vooch. I would much rather, honestly, I would rather start him and like just move off of Vooch completely, but they're not going to want to take him back in Orlando, so you'd have to find some other place to sit Vooch. But Mo Bamba is the guy because he's like 23, 24 years old. So he's closer, he's more young, so that means he fits the Pat Will timeline, the Zoe timeline, and he'll still be, by the time Zach is at the end of this contract, which would make him like 32, Mo Bamba would be like 27, 28. And so they still would have a giant window to compete. And I think there's a lot of untapped potential there because they really just didn't play him a lot in Orlando. They could never get Vooch out of there to play him, and when they did, they had Wendell Carter Jr. come in, and they favored Wendell. Ironically, who came from the Bulls, who they could have used Wendell this year, but I'm not going to get into that. Bobby Portis, and there's a couple others out there. Nick Batum, a few other guys. Look, I understand the thrill of wanting some of these dudes, but they're likely re-signing with their same teams. They're just going to re-sign for a better contract. Okay, Bobby Portis was getting like $4 million. He's probably closer to like $10 million, and a longer contract. So that's where we're at with that. I wouldn't expect those kind of guys. Mitchell Robinson, I've been hearing mixed deals about him. I've been hearing that they're going to re-sign him to a 4-year, $60 million. I've also heard they're going to let him test the market. I don't know what to believe on that. I would like to say that if they're going to plan to re-sign him, that's too much money for the Bulls to take. They can't get that contract. They can't match that. He would have to take a pay cut to choose to come here. Um, Outside of that, you guys know my standard likes: Rui, Jonathan Isaac. It's a couple others out there, Kuzma. Um, Hell, even Julius Randle, but I don't want his contract. I would like Julius Randle, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that. But my theory or my thinking is, look, we need a power forward, someone that can also play small ball five. Julius could go out there, get you 20 points, 8, 9 rebounds, 3, 4 assists, and he can shoot. And so, and he plays defense. He's just too good of a player. You know what I'm saying? If you don't want Julius, I understand. If you think he's a cancer, I understand. Um, my logic behind it is, hey, you only got this year and next year of DeMar DeRozan. If it doesn't work by then, you might want to blow it up, and then you could just ship him off. Okay, that's not a lot of time for him to be like a cancer and destroy the locker room. If you feel he's gonna do that, um, John Collins is interesting of Atlanta because I really don't know what's out there for him. Like the power forward market and the center market is kind of saturated, and I don't really know who's calling or who's trying to make a serious deal with them about him because I mean they just gave up 3 firsts to get DeJounte Murray. I would imagine they'd want to recoup some of those assets, but no matter who they get back, they're going to be downgrading. And so I look at it like this: DeAndre Hunter could play the power forward, so you could just trade John Collins for a small forward. There's probably more of them on the market. A small forward and picks, someone just solid to come in and do a job, right? I'm not quite sure again where he would go as far as this pertains to the Bulls. It's hard to see them wanting anyone other than I mean they just got DeJounte Murray and they got Trey, so they're not gonna want DeMar DeRozan or Zach LaVine at this point. It's just that's out the window. So really it's just like Pat Will. And they're not gonna want Vucevic. See, so you see what I'm saying? There's not a lot for us to do to like get in play here, unless there's some kind of 3-team trade that benefits everybody. And so I think we're out of the market for him. A lot of these guys you're going to see they're either priced outside of our range or we just simply don't have the assets to forfeit to make that kind of a deal. That's what sucks when you give up assets for Vucevic and DeMar DeRozan, and I mean first round picks, to get these guys. Now you can't hardly move them. Well, you can move DeRozan, but they just don't want to. So that's pretty much that. Outside of that, all the other noise, like Bradley Beal declining his offer, Harden declining his offer, they're going to re-sign with their teams. Not that we want either of those guys anyway. Kyrie opted in. He can still be traded. I know there's a lot of noise about that. I don't really care. I don't think KD will come available, and even if he does, I highly doubt that we're in play for him because they'll likely want Zach LaVine and picks and Zoe and Pat Will, and I doubt they're not willing to pay that price for KD. Even if that's your team to go and try to win a championship, to me that's not good enough. But then again, this team here is not good enough, especially as currently constructed. So at this point, there's not a lot of moves that they can make. And so it's going to be a continuity thing, like Acme said. Kobe has been shopped. I don't know what the market is for him yet. It would have been easier to move him with the pick. And people were calling about the pick at the draft. This is reported. And I think Mark Eversley even said himself, like, tons of people called about trying to get that pick. And so I would imagine making him take Kobe would have been part of the deal. But I did see a rumor that the Lakers were interested in Kobe White. And I look at that roster. The only players I could imagine us possibly wanting is Dwight Howard and Carmelo Anthony. maybe Trevor Ariza. But I would have to think that Kobe has more value, at least in Trevor Ariza. Maybe not Dwight Howard or Carmelo ish, but to me, that's just like that's a suck ass return. If I'm being honest, I would much rather trade Kobe to someone like Washington and try to get Rui, you know what I'm saying, or try to get Kuzma. But as it stands, I'm not. Yeah, I don't like the market for Kobe, so it's very likely that Kobe will be on this team for summer camp. And I think that's the worst case scenario for all of us here, but you know, we just got to be realistic about these things. That's what it's looking like it's coming to. Speaking of summer camp, um, Acme has spoken about Zoe and said the same thing that Mark Eversley did, that there had been improvement. And it's looking like he'll probably return around summer camp. Now, I told you guys a while ago, I was like, look, he the meniscus thing is cured. He's fixed on that. That's not the issue. It's the bone bruise. If the bone bruise is getting better, that means he's going to be able to do more and more workout stuff. If he's able to do more and more workout stuff, he'll be able to play soon. He'll be able to do contact and stuff. So we're still being patient. It's completely possible he could still miss part of training camp. It's very possible he could still miss the beginning of the regular season even. But the main thing is he is showing improvement. So it might just be like, hey, he's a slow healer and he's just going to take some time to heal. And the Bulls have to be prepared for that. Now, we're deep at guard. So we got that covered, unlike a lot of other teams. But I would temper expectations. Temper. Despite the fact that everybody's doing all this talking about moves and nobody's getting hit with temper charges, but whatever. I would temper expectations that he would be available mid to late training camp or within the first month and a half of the regular season. That's what I think. Um, and I honestly hope it's a lot sooner than that, but we'll see what happens. They've been sending their medical staff out there weekly to go check on Zoe, and they're seeing improvement. And so that's the main thing. He's able to do more now than he could, back in April. So that's kind of what you want to see. Maybe not to the same speed. Maybe he's not, improving at that fast of a rate, but he's still improving. So that's good news. Um, but that's the kind of thing to expect, man. Poor circulation in that area, it becomes harder, especially all that scar tissue. It becomes harder for that to heal and everything because you need blood. You need good, rich, oxygenated blood into those parts of the body and those systems to make sure that you can heal faster, recover at a pretty decent rate. But that wasn't happening. He just had too much going on with his knee there. Hell, I think Kendrick Nunn had a similar issue on the Lakers this year, and it sidelined him the entire season. So, it's not too odd for something like that to occur, I would say. But anywho, I'm not gonna hold you guys too much longer. Um, that's pretty much the bulk of it. I mean, I've seen some, you know, shooters like two guards and stuff out there. I've seen some names thrown out there because they definitely want more shooting. But it's starting to get crowded in that backcourt, man. It really is. And so I don't really want to talk about any shooters that they potentially get, because it's crowded as fuck in the backcourt. So we'll just have to be patient and see. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you guys. I hope you all have a good day. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.